I'm John Lanius. Welcome to The Room. The Room gives you access to Geniecast top thought leaders, authors, entrepreneurs, business coaches, sports celebrities, and much more. Our guests will share ideas and concepts that you may use to better your organization and propel your teams. My guest today is actress and comedian Jen Kober. She is a past winner of NPR's Snap Judgment Comedic Performance and offers an original blend of stand-up, storytelling, and improvised rock and roll comedy. You can see her on shows that include RuPaul's AJ and the Queen, Diary of a Future President, The Purge, and The Righteous Gemstones on HBO. Hi, Jen. How are you?
Hi.
So it's so great to see you. Now, I mean, you and I get to work on a whole number of things, and maybe we might get into some of that today. But we're going to focus on your acting and your comedy. So for those that don't know, how did you get your start in comedy?
Well, as a child, I always tried to distract other children in class. I always finished my work first. It was a contest to me as far as I was concerned. And I always turned my work in first and then proceeded to try to distract all the other children from completing their work. So I was very lucky that I had teachers that sort of channeled all of that energy and put me into drama classes and speech classes and things like that. And when I was 16, my friends and I had snuck into a bar in New Orleans, as one will do. And they signed me up for the open mic. There was a comedy open mic going on, and they signed me up and didn't tell me. And after I'd had a couple of drinks as a 16-year-old, right, it didn't take much. I got up there and I started telling stories about being able to hear my parents through the air conditioning vents in my house. And so I just started telling stories right then and there. And it got big laughs and I was hooked. The minute someone laughed at me, I was like, yes, this is what I want to do always.
So, I mean, just to let the audience know, you and I both went to theater school together, and we might talk about that a little bit later on. And so I had an opportunity to see you at the beginning. And I mean, you've had an amazing, career up to this point. There's great things for you in 2021 and beyond. So what's your process for creating new material?
Really, all I have to do is go out and live my life. I mean, we live in a crazy, surreal world where people will say anything. So all I really have to do is kind of be true to what actually happens and then start kind of combining littler stories into a bigger sort of picture, right? So it's very easy for me to do that. It's very, I mean, so much, not a lot has happened in the past year, but somehow still there's lots of material because we're all going through the same thing. And so, it sort of creates this consciousness of all of us together. And that's where so many laughs can come up, is because we all experienced this one odd year of happen. I mean, it's been going on a really long time, but you know what I'm saying? Like, we all experienced last year in some amount of commonality. And so by doing that, we can all laugh at some of these same things that were going on literally worldwide. So I think while it was one of those years that seemed to divide us more than ever, I think that through laughter and by having stories about it and experiences that we all shared, we can make it into something that we kind of look back and go, wow, we really got through that, and laugh at it instead of sort of focusing on how many, tragedies and divisive events happened, though those things need to be addressed as well.
Well, so you talk about just living your life and then the kind of world that we're living in right now. And I've had a chance to work with you on many different projects over the past year. But when you talk specifically about your comedy, are you the type of comedian that will try out any new joke, or are you more patient in incorporating newer material in your show?
I think first of all, I don't write anything down for when I'm doing stand-up. I have things that I write, certainly, but when I'm doing stand-up, I sort of know what I want to say. I know and what I plot out is sort of the beats, right? So it starts here, it goes to this, and then it goes here. And so I know the sort of beginning, middle, and end of it. And then I just try to be present and remember what it was like when I was experiencing it and tell it as honestly as I can. So there's not a lot of there's not a feeling of I'm trying something new out. It's just, oh my God, here's what happened to me. And let me explain it to you, and show you how this weird thing that happened to me or this funny thing that happened to me will make you forget about whatever is wrong in your life.
So in the past 20 years, we've begun to see in business the importance of improv and comedy, appropriate comedy, being incorporated. And so, when you think about those, right? So for some people that may want to actually try stand up or, different types of comedy, what advice do you have for newcomers?
Well, I think if you're a newcomer, the thing to know is that stand-up comedy is like a muscle and you've got to work it out to get good at it. You know what I mean? So you've got to, and you're spinning a lot of plates when you're up there, right? Uh, because it's a live performance, you're having to deal with what's actually happening in the room. You have a story you're trying to convey. You're trying to read the room for how people are reacting. There's a lot going on. And you only get good at that, and you only get comfortable at the level you need to be comfortable at to be successful by doing it. So if it's something you've always wanted to try, go try it and keep trying it, because it's not always going to be great. But it's one of those things that if you keep doing it, and working out the muscle, you will get better at it. Now, will that be enough to become a comedian? I don't know. But I think it's a skill that is helpful, because what it's doing, and the way that that I think improv and comedy and things can be so helpful in business settings, is it's really teaching you to use your voice. What is your experience, your honest, genuine experience that you can bring to this in perhaps a lighthearted way to make some situation that seems tense or is hard to deal with, or where, coworkers are clashing egos or whatever that is. You can use the skills that you would have as a comedian to either mediate such things or to come at someone who you genuinely have a disagreement with some amount of authenticity and humor, which is a way to be heard. I mean, it's just the truth. You don't want to listen to somebody, yelling at you or telling you all the things you've done wrong. You want someone who's going to sort of spin a story about it. And it's sort of the Karate Kid of learning there, where they're going to tell you a story, they're going to relate to you, they're going to laugh with you, and you're going to come to some understanding of, is there a way for us to both have our opinions, voice our ideas, and not clash. I also think that improvisation is just a skill that anyone working with anyone should have. I mean, it is, people are always, oh, I could never do that. I could never just make things up on the spot. You're doing it all day long. Nobody gave you a script for what to say today to people. You're hearing what they're saying. It's going through the filter of you, and you're expressing what your reaction is to it. And that's all improvisation is. It's reacting to what's happening, and in an honest way. And when you do that, and one of the great principles of improvisation for me is that there are no mistakes, right? If I come into a scene and you've already said your name is Brad and people have called you Brad, and I come in and call you Joe, that can't be a mistake. We have to somehow incorporate that into this larger pattern, like, oh, that's right. You call me Joe because you know me from back when I was in college. I went by Joe. You justify it the way you do in life. And so I think that the principles that you learn in improvisation and in stand-up comedy that are super fun to learn, and it's super fun to laugh at all these things while you're kind of doing the workshop, but then that you take those skills and those concepts and you start applying them in business situations and realizing that there is a way for everyone to have their voice heard, to feel seen, to feel valued, and for us still to enjoy our work. I mean, I want to have fun when I work. I do what I love for a living. And I can promise you there's some nights that I'm like, they made me work for every laugh. Wow, that was hard. That was not the fun thing that I think I signed up for. You know what I mean? It's work. But if you can find a way to find joy, 80, 90% of the time that you're working with other people, I think because of this pandemic, we've gotten so used to working by ourselves again, right? It's you're on Zoom meetings or whatever, but there's some sort of semblance of you getting to do you because you're alone in your house and you're not wearing pants, right? Like, so there's your only business from like the waist up. And so I think that as we start to integrate back in with people and in our workspaces, it's going to be even more important to have these sort of communication skills. And that's all it is. It's communication skills presented in a way that ends up being really fun, right? When I teach improv, I am never teaching anyone how to be funny. I'm teaching someone how to react honestly, and usually that's funny. So you're never looking for the joke. You're looking for the truth.
So speaking of improv, yes, I agree. And being on shows like, speak about that in a second. So being on shows like Diary of a Future President, AJ and the Queen, The Purge, and many others, what show was the most fun? And circling back, what does yes and mean?
So quickly, yes and is an improvisational technique where you accept anything someone gives you and you build on it. You can't just say yes, that's going to end the conversation. So you want to agree with what they're saying. And it's not even that you're being asked a yes or no question. If you start a scene and you say, God, this Hawaiian sun is so refreshing. If I look at you and go, no, it's not, we're dead. We're dead in the water. That scene's going to go nowhere. I have to accept what you say and build on it. And so I would say, yes. And I'm so glad we brought all these thong bikinis. Now we're off to the races. Do you see what I'm saying? I've taken what you said, I've accepted it, and I've built onto it and added something else that we're now going to have to deal with, me in a thong, which is never good.
Yes.
But it's a very fun
So,
thing. Go ahead.
So of the shows that you are on right now, which one is your most favorite? Quickly before we go to the break.
It's real. I just filmed a small little character arc on a couple of episodes of Black Monday on Showtime with Don Cheadle and Regina Hall. It was super fun to shoot. Regina Hall is one of the most generous actresses I have ever worked with. She was right there with me. During the breaks, we were like going over the lines and coming up with like, funnier punches or silly things to button the script with, or ways to make each other laugh. It was fantastic. I cannot wait for you guys to see that show and the scene that we did. It's incredible.
And there's so much more. We'll be right back with more from comedian and actress Jen Kober.
Imagine my fat kid delight when I found out I'd be gathering with other girls my age, also called brownies. We're gonna be selling Girl Scout cookies. What? I didn't even know there were going to be cookies involved. As a kid, there were only 4 kinds of Girl Scout cookies. Today, there are 17. 4. I had planned in my little head how I was going to eat as many cookies as I could, and I had 17 days to do it, so that the package was completely empty. Then I'd whip out my glue stick, I was only 10, ma'am, but I was reading at a 6th grade level. I snuck down and ate cookies every single night for 17 days. It wasn't even enjoyable at the end. Child, did you eat 144 boxes of cookies?
I love it. We're back with comedian and actress Jen Coburn. Now, clearly that was from the Snap Judgment comedic performance, and obviously before the pandemic. So how did you spend your time during the lockdown of this pandemic?
Well, I did eat my share of Girl Scout cookies, that's for sure. I like to put one of those Samoas on each finger and take one bite at a time and eat it in rapid succession. And whichever finger finishes first gets another cookie. That's how I do it. I spent my time really, I had just had knee surgery at the top of the pandemic, and I was supposed to just kind of have a week off and head back out on tour. So my doctor was like, this might take a really long time to heal, you know, because you have to stay active. You have to keep working, you know, running through airports and doing, I was on tour. So it was really great that I got to like rest and chill here at my house. I trained my dog. So my dog can now go to the refrigerator. Now I have a rag around the handle. So she grabs the rag, she pulls the refrigerator door open, and she brings me slices of cheese. This is her skill. That's how I spent my pandemic, teaching my dog to bring me cheese. And then, you know, I got to bond with, I have a sweet little neighbor, a little 7, she's at 8 now. She would get very mad at me for saying she was 7. I have an 8-year-old little neighbor who just became my best friend because we live in the same little fourplex and she's right there and she's the only kid. And I was alone and she was alone and we were bored out of our skulls. And so we struck up a friendship. And we did everything together. We baked things. We made rainbow colored spaghetti. We made our own slime that smelled like strawberries. We baked cakes. We baked bread. We had a taco night every Tuesday. Like we just hung out. And I learned so much from this 8-year-old. It was unbelievable. So, you know, it was a really good year for me sort of to kind of regroup and get things, you know, to rest. I mean, I'd been on tour for 3 years without stop. So I was ready. I was ready for a nice break.
So my favorite experience with you during the lockdown was actually hosting your comedy show. And as carefully as possible, you were a part of a phenomena that happened in the early part of the pandemic on Zoom, which was Zoom bombing. What was your experience?
Well, you know, we were doing this online show. So in the beginning, we didn't know anything about online shows. I mean, I was literally doing the show to no response. No one had their microphone on. So I couldn't hear anyone laughing or anything. So you're really just doing comedy, you know, into the ether and hoping that it's hitting. So you can see, I could see the kids at this show and you know, I'm doing material about my Nana. And then all of a sudden, a picture of a naked fella comes up on the screen and blaring music starts happening. Like, and we're like, what? I didn't know what was going on. I was mortified, but I'm talking about my Nana and there's a naked fella on the screen. You know what I'm saying? It was not. And I'm like, do I keep talking? Can they all see it? Am I the only one that can see it? Is this John messing with me while you know what I mean? Well, I can't hear the kid. What's happening right now? And I can just hear you at the program board, like click, 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 click. You're just trying to like stop. I'm like, John, what is happening? You're like, Jen, I'm trying to fix it. I promise I'm trying to fix it. And we finally did get it fixed and we figured it out. But there were like 3 minutes there of total distress where I was also in my head thinking like, I have been heckled a lot in my career. I've been doing stand-up since I was 16. So to now be heckled with naked pictures of fellas just popping up on the screen. This is new. This is creative. Like, I didn't like it, but I sure did, want to pat on the back the fella who thought of it. I mean, it was very creative. It was very original, quite clever. If I was in college and I had thought of that, I would have done it 1,000%. It would have made me giggle inside to no end.
I love that. So shifting a little bit to what you do on the Geniecast platform, you use your comedy to teach diversity and inclusion in the workplace. And I think that's so important. And so, why is comedy an important aspect of that for you?
Well, I think comedy, what it does is it creates a commonality between all of us, right? I'm a very left-leaning human, but I can make fun of the left-leaning humans and make everybody laugh. I can make fun of the right-leaning humans and make everybody laugh. There are things that are just funny. And it's not about I'm not trying to upset you. I'm not trying to make you feel like you're not seen or heard. I'm just stating kind of the obvious thing and making it funny. I want it to be funny. My goal is never to offend anyone. I want people to come together by laughing. I mean, and I think laughter does that. I also happen to be a lady who loves ladies. This is my actual haircut and I am wearing a necktie. I'm sure that wasn't a hard leap for anyone to take. And my girlfriend is a beautiful African-American woman and has a child. And so I feel like I'm in a very sort of diverse, inclusive situation in my life. And I grew up in a place where that's just not the way it's done. And I can understand that sort of mentality because I grew up around it. And I genuinely believe that when you know someone who is LGBTQ plus member of the community, when you know someone who is a person of color, when you know someone who is a woman of color, and you understand what their struggles are and you meet them as a person and not as this idea in your head that your papa told you about, like when you can really bring actual experience to people, it amazes me what it does. I have seen people that should not be friends, right? If you read it on paper, you'd be like, this isn't going to happen. Look at this. No, these two people are never going to click. And I've seen them click and I've watched it evolve, and it's incredible to witness. It is fulfilling to have been part of it, or to have brokered the deal sort of. And it's one of those conversations, one of those, ideas that must come to fruition. We are living in a world that includes many different kinds of people. And if you're going to spend your life adamant about not having anything to do with a certain group of people because of their race, religion, sexual orientation, gender, whatever that is, you're missing out. And you are not tapping into the human experience, right? I watch a lot of murder shows. I don't know if I'm sure people will identify with this, but my happy place is watching Dateline, like a Dateline marathon. Like, tell me about these terrible people. And it's not because I have something in common with terrible people. It's because it's fascinating to know how someone else thinks, right? And so wouldn't it be wonderful to find out? I just watched a documentary about transgender people, and it follows a different transgender person sort of through their entire journey of transitioning. And that's always been something that's been very hard for me to understand. And so watching, even as a queer person, even as someone who identifies as a lesbian, which I'm sure plenty of people find that they don't understand that. Transgender was something I didn't understand. And I watched this documentary and I spoke to people and I read books and I educated myself on what this experience was for others. And it has led me to such a deep understanding and to new friendships and to just new empathy and care and understanding for other people, which I think is ultimately what has to be created in a work environment. I have to feel safe. I have to feel like part of the group. I have to feel like this community accepts me. And I have to know that that also means I will have to accept the other members of this community myself. So
great. Such a great explanation or a share. That was incredible. So Jen, when we come back, we're going to have our 5 questions for you. So stay with us. We've got comedian and actress Jen Kober. Welcome back. We're talking with Jen Kober, actress and comedian extraordinaire. So every week on The Room, we're going to ask our guests the same 5 questions. So Jen, as someone who has performed for and connected with audiences of all sizes, creating memorable moments in their lives, we hope you'll appreciate how we're creating an experience for our audience around your insights. Are you ready for your 5 questions?
Hit me.
All right. Question number 1. Question number 1, what do you see as the biggest opportunities that businesses aren't taking advantage of in the world today?
I think it probably is diversity and inclusion training. And I think that they miss out also on girl training. I don't even know how else to put that. Like, I think that there is a different road that men take to get to successful places and that women take to get to successful places. And I think that there is a very missed opportunity for everyone not to understand the other's journey. And so I would love to see more female positive sort of workshops or lectures or talks or whatever that is. Something, I would like it to be something interactive because I always think that that's more helpful than a lecture. But it's definitely that girls in the workplace are powerful. Boom.
Question number 2, if you could have a conversation with one person from any time or anywhere, who would it be?
Well, I was supposed to go work a cruise, a women empowering cruise last year that Gloria Steinem was going to be on. And I was very excited to meet her. I was very young when that was all starting. I mean, it started before I was born. I'm positive of that. But in the 80s, when I was sort of coming up, I just really loved that, watching her speak. And so I was very excited that I was going to get to meet her. I had 1,000 questions. I had an entire plan on how I was going to stalk her on the cruise ship. But that hasn't come to fruition yet. That will happen. Believe, you're going to want to read that blog when it happens.
All right, question number 3. What is one book every person in business should read and why?
One book. Well, it's probably the Gloria Steinem book. The Here's the truth. What is it? The truth is going to set you free, but first it's going to piss you off. Right? I think that's a great, it's a great book. I don't think that men, I don't think that men understand what it took for a woman to get where they are, because the world is built for cisgendered, straight, white men. That's just the truth. I don't say that judgmentally. I don't say it to make men feel inferior, though I think you are. I say it because I think that having that appreciation, like realizing that someone who is not you had a different journey, whether it was hard or not. There are plenty of women, I'm sure, that got somewhere easily or quickly. I'm sure there are, but I believe, I have to believe that there is an understanding there that needs to happen. And that book it's a quick, easy read, fellas. It's very easy, and it's truth. And reading it and hearing it and absorbing it can only help. The situation and the level of work and productivity that I think you can get from female coworkers who feel open and seen and heard and empowered to bring their ideas to the table.
Absolutely. Question number 4. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
It's the best piece of advice I've ever been given. My grandma used to always tell me to not let somebody who's not going anywhere take you with them. Don't let somebody that's not going anywhere take you with them. And I think that's very true. That's helped me a lot. You know, when you tell people as a young person that you're planning on going into comedy, or you're planning on going into acting, or you're planning on, pursuing a life in the arts, I got a lot of, oh, don't you want to have something to fall back on? Don't you want to have this safety net? Don't you want to find a man and settle down and have a family and blah, 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 right? Like there was just all of this pushback on it. And it was upsetting. And I realized I was hearing this from people that's what their aspirations were. And I had bigger dreams than that. And so I've always clung to that. Don't let somebody who's not going anywhere take you with them.
So great. Question number 5 and your last question. Why is a conversation better than a lecture?
I alluded to this a little bit before. I think that interaction lecture insinuates to me, I think it has an air of I know more than you, and I'm going to lecture this at you. And I think a conversation takes everyone's experience into account and values it and says, hey, as a person who needs to understand whatever concept we're talking about, where are you coming from? Where are you coming from? What was your life experience? What has gotten you here? And if we all can listen to that from each other, it's only going to make communicating about anything, difficult subject or not, easier. And I think that human beings are starting to have harder conversations in general. We just live in a world where there's some shit we got to talk about. So because of that, I think there is a need for us all to bring our own experience into it, at the same time having done some work on our own before we start opening our mouth. I think that's just the truth. I needed to read some books and understand some things, before I started having conversations with people about many different subjects. I mean, there's just stuff I don't know. And knowing that you don't know things and wanting to know things, like thirsting for that knowledge. Like, you know, John, you and I have known each other since college. And I was just saying the other day that college was so wasted on me. Pretty much all of school was kind of wasted on me because I wasn't there to learn. I was there. I mean, I learned the stuff they made me learn. I'm real good at memorizing. I'm super smart. I can spit things back out. I can learn. It's not that I wasn't taught anything. It's that passion inside of me, like wanting to know, was not there. I was there to be social. I'm a very social creature. And I was there, you know, for lunchtime and recess and talking I'll do the work, but can I talk now? That was always my sort of objective. I was there to interact with the people. And now I understand that knowing things, having this knowledge of history, feminist history, Black history, Asian history, transgender history, queer history, things I did not know anything about, even though I was a member of the queer community. There was a whole history of that I didn't know. And so to go and educate myself on that on my own and then start having conversations, I think is what has helped me the most. And that is why I think a conversation is always going to beat a lecture, because a conversation involves you and a lecture comes at you.
Jen Kober, so great. Like when I look at the fact that we can reconnected late in 2019, you have been the highlight of the pandemic with the adventures that we've been on that we don't have time to talk about here. But thank you so much for being a guest on the room and sharing some great information. What would you like to leave us with today?
Well, you know, just that I hope you find joy and laughter every day in some way. You know, whether you just get tickled at a commercial you see on TV, whether, you know, I watched a little kid, this is going to sound terrible, but I watched a little kid walk into a door that it was a glass door, and he didn't hurt himself. He kind of just dazed and then like, oh, and but watching him walk into the little door, it just tickled me. I didn't like fall out laughing at a child getting hurt. It was just that moment of like, he knocked his little head and he was like, oh. It was precious. Just finding moments, you know, sometimes my dog will just come lick me from shoulder up the side of my head, and I'll just look at her and I swear she's telling me something. I don't know what it is, but it makes me smile. And so finding those little things in life that can make you smile and bring you joy, that is what it's about. And that is what is going to keep us all sane, no matter what happens.
Again, Jen, so great. And I'd like to leave you, Jen, with a thank you. You know, we never know the impact. Hang on. We never know the impact that we make on others. And when you and I were in college together, you were the friend that I needed at the perfect time. So thank you for the positive difference that you've made in my life, that you make in other people's lives. You are a joy to be around, and I'm so happy you can join us today. It's been a pleasure interviewing you. Thank you very much, Jen.
Always, honey. You whenever you want to interview me, you call me. Next time it's not the room. We're gonna need a bigger conversation. We're gonna call it the warehouse.
Next up on the warehouse, a lot of people joining us in the room. Make sure you're vaccinated, exactly. Wear your mask. All right, Jen, thanks a lot. Join us next week when our guest will be Simon T. Bailey. Simon T. Bailey is the leader of the Spark movement, which has ignited transformations and motivated millions to find their purpose. Bailey is the author of Shift Your Brilliance and Release Your Brilliance, among many other titles. I'm John Lanius. We'll see you next time on The Room.